Kathy, Sarah, Lila, Laura, Lillian, Susan, John. How do you feel when someone says your name? When I was in seminary, I did not live on campus and I did not know a soul. It was a time of loneliness, accentuated by the complete lack of recognition. No one on campus knew my name, not a soul. At the time, I was taking a class taught by the Reverend Christy Wilson. Hundreds of students flocked to his class. He had pastored the first Christian church in Afghanistan until it was destroyed and he was cast out. He had an indomitable spirit that drove him wide and far to share God's love with everyone. One day, as I was walking across campus, I noticed Christy Wilson ahead walking toward me. And as we passed, I nodded at him and said, "Good morning." He looked at me and said, "Good morning, Scott. How are you doing today?" I was stunned. I said, "I was fine." And then he asked me, "How are Lucas and Christina?" I couldn't help myself at that point. "Professor Wilson, we've never been introduced. How do you know my name or the names of my family?" "Well, we have a photo directory, and I pray for every student and their family each week. It makes me feel truly connected with students I hope to serve." This man prayed for over 1,000 students by name every week, looking at a photo directory, knowing what they look like, knowing who their families were, knowing their names. I want to take a moment this morning to reflect on this amazing reading from Isaiah that reminds us that God is the great sayer of names. God calls each of us by name. Our names set us apart, but in doing so, invite us to be in relationship. Calling someone by their name invites relationship, affirms familiarity, and creates community. And if you think God's vision of community is parochial, just to have people who are like us all gathered together in our spiritually gated communities, all believing the same things, all practicing the same lifestyle, then this passage will blow your mind nearly as much as it blew away the religious stuffiness of Isaiah's time. That's because Cyrus, the one God calls by name, is not a believer. He is a slick politician who has no interest in the people of God. Yet God calls him by name, takes his hand, and anoints him, which is always a reference to a Messiah. Now, just Google this passage and you will find Isaiah's blessing of Cyrus has recently been adopted by mostly white, mostly Christian advocates of a president who does not share their religious values, but who claims to be on their side and is willing to destroy things. But scholars like Professor Christopher Hayes of Fuller Theological Seminary are quick to point out, quote, that the Babylonian Jews who benefited from Cyrus's conquest were a disempowered ethnic minority with no ability to control their own fate or that of the nation in which they resided. By contrast, white Christians in the United States are highly privileged by their identity and part of the founding demographic of the nation. The irony that someone would create such a narrative from a reading that was meant to dismantle all human narrative is bizarre to say the least. Isaiah implies that any leader that seeks to release the oppressed, no matter what they might believe or not believe, is part of God's narrative. God is the one who says our name, who creates not only our identity, but calls us forth to live into it. Biblical traditions around naming coincide with spiritual transformation, not reestablishing human narratives of division or oppression. In Genesis 17, God renames Abram to Abraham as he became called not just to be a father, but a father of multitudes. On the road to Damascus, Saul was renamed Paul. At a moment of great confession, Jesus shifts the meaning of Simon's name to that of Peter. And if you are following Professor Cater's series on Genesis, you know that God empowers Adam to name the animals. That naming was meant to remind us that we are in dynamic relationship with creation and should most certainly not be the authors of its extinction. In many religious traditions, it is common to change or add a name. Catholics sometimes receive a name at baptism. The Eastern Orthodox tradition often assigns a name at confirmation or when one is received into the church. Many Buddhist sects also practice this, with the newly ordained often given new names by their master. At least 13 states have renamed October 12th, transforming it from Columbus Day into Indigenous Peoples Day, acknowledging that the narrative around Columbus was whitewashed. Again, a shift in names accompanies a spiritual moral awareness. Native Americans have a fluid naming tradition, one that deeply resonates with the biblical understanding of naming. Native American children are given names that suit their personalities. If a name is given and proves to be a bad fit, the child's name is changed. At adolescence, the given name may be changed again. What is so striking is that it is the tribe that renames a member, creating a strong bond with the community and a level of accountability. This fluid naming tradition helps to motivate the individual to grow throughout life with a deeper awareness of how your community experiences you and how it seeks to call you to something greater. For Native Americans, the name Dancing Wind, well, beautiful to me, actually means tornado. Someone bearing such a name is volatile with an angry disposition. It serves as a warning to others, as well as an incentive to Dancing Wind to earn a new name. If the name Bear is changed to Wounded Bear, society knows the individual is suffering and needs special care. If someone excels in wisdom, Eagle Eye may become their name, recognizing their vision or clear-sightedness. Tribal names almost always have connections with the earth, which provides the child with a strong sense of being part of the natural environment. Western culture moved away from not only a fluid naming process, but also using names that connect us to. Names drawn from nature are making a comeback, such as Chloe, meaning green shoot, Olivia, olive, Logan, little hollow, Brandon, hill covered with broom. Native Americans also have a secret sacred name that represents their pure essence. That name is known only to the individual and the medicine man. That name represents the pure spiritual core from which one would regenerate should the individual experience any trauma. It's worth to take some time and consider what our hidden name might be. The Native American naming tradition inspires the individuals to strive to be better, to heal, and to evolve. The bond between society and the individual is very personal. It stands in contrast with our Western tradition, which often looks backwards with names from whence we came. Scott may historically connect me with a grandparent I never knew. But if God is the one who calls my name, I could benefit from listening for the name God wishes to call me. I sometimes wonder if our abandonment of the very spiritual and communal discernment nature of naming has created a void that leads to name calling. What would your Native American name be right now? At a major transition in my life, Sarah Jones gave me this word cloud. Sarah, I don't remember how you collected these statements about me, but this cloud is a permanent fixture in our house. Maybe some of it might be my tribal name, at least for now. I love some of these things. Justice Seeker, Rabble Rouser, Mission Tripper. I wonder where God is calling me next. This profound spiritual awareness of naming, one that the community discerns together, one that is meant to speak truth in a way that empowers a member to grow and remain connected to the community and the earth, is grounded in our faith tradition. What is God's name for us now? What is God calling me to let go of so that I can move forward into a new chapter, a new narrative of my life? Isaiah connects God's saying of one's name with the discovery of treasures of darkness and riches hidden in secret places. What is St. John's name evolving into? Should we change our name? Every week we say the names when we gather. We say names for those who are wounded bears. We may not know them or know their story, but we name them. It is an act of community. It is an act of love. And we live in a time when people are crying out to have their names said. Saying names creates connection, creates community, and can create a world grounded on justice, on compassion, and on peace. So today, for the meditation, we will celebrate our connection to the broader community by heeding what I consider to be a prayer request from the African American community to say their names.
Micaiah Lee, Darius Tarver, William Green, Jacqueline O'Neill Light, Lionel Morris, Ahmaud Arbery, Manuel Ellis, Barry Gadeus, Breonna Taylor, Daniel Prude.
Stephen Taylor, Cornelius Fredericks, Maurice Gordon, George Floyd, Deion Johnson, Tony McDade, Calvin Horton Jr., James Scurlock, David McAtee, Jamel Floyd.
Kamal Flowers, Robert Forbes, Priscilla Slater, Rayshard Brooks, Maurice Abizdid Wagner, Julian Lewis, Anthony McLean, Damian Daniels, Dijon Kizay, Jonathan Price.
The universe shrank when you went away. Every time I thought your name, stars fell upon me.